a very popular refrán that a lot of Latinas don't like is Calladita te ves más bonita, which is you're prettier when you're quiet. And my thing was a nod to that to say, no, I'm actually uglier when I'm quiet.
Have you ever felt like the script you're following doesn't quite fit anymore? Then you're in the right place. I'm Marisela Herrera, and I started Should I Just Quit My Job after walking away from a job I thought defined me. Forget the highlight reels. Here, we talk about the messy middle, the doubts, the detours, and the chaos that come with rethinking who we are. Because the truth is, it was never just about quitting a job. It was about questioning everything I thought I knew. Hey everyone, thanks for joining me for another episode of Should I Just Quit My Job? I'm Marisela Herrera. Very happy you're here. Today's episode is my first conversation with a returning guest. I am very excited for you to hear from Hady Mendez, who was a guest on my show a long time ago. So, Hady is an author, a speaker. She works a lot with ERGs and really focused and centered in the underestimated population, particularly with Latinas. Her book, Calladita No More, just came out. It's kind of part manifesto, part memoir, part not guide, because she even says it's not a guide, but advice and part kind of workbook because it has all these reflection questions for women of color, particularly for Latinas in business. And it tells Hattie's story and the lessons she's learned. And it's really good. I sometimes worry about reading books from authors I know because I'm like, what if I don't like it? I actually really, really enjoyed it. I decided, actually, after our conversation on this episode, I decided to listen to it in audiobook. And I'm really glad I did because I think with Hattie reading it, she reads it herself, you get these Spanglish moments, you get the feeling, you get I don't know, there's something that comes through and okay, sure, I know her, so I'm a little biased, but there's something that comes through that feels like personal, like she's talking to you, especially every time she's like, "Fuck that." It's just made me laugh, and honestly, she wasn't wrong. And all the times she said, "Fuck that," she was not wrong. I was, like, nodding along. Yeah, fuck that. If you are a Latina, know a Latina, are an ally, I would really recommend the book. I'm actually thinking of who I'm gonna gift it to, particularly younger women, I think would get a ton out of it. Okay, and it sounds like I'm doing an ad, but I'm not. I'm just genuinely really in awe of all the work Hattie has done. I've known her for a couple of years, and I've known her trajectory. She had this really great job as the head of equality at a tech company, and for the last couple of years, we talk about it in the interview because it's kind of around the same time as I left my job, she started her own thing. She started her consulting. She started doing and experimenting in different formats. And it's been wonderful to see her journey. And the book journey, we kind of started together, except that she is one of those people who goes and does things. I am one of those people who thinks about doing things in some cases. That's not true. I did this podcast. I did this podcast when no one thought I would. And here we are. Oh, one more thing. Because of Hattie's background and my own, we do use some acronyms that if you're not familiar with the US business world, particularly when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, they might sound a little weird. So I just wanted to make sure that I cover those in the beginning for anyone who is not familiar. We talk about DEI, and I think that that is a very well known acronym by now because of Ugh, all of the things that are going on and all of the backlash it's gotten. But DEI stands for diversity, equity, inclusion. It's been rebranded and tried and Currently, it is very much under pressure from the administration, and you might see it and have heard it in the news. So I'm sure that is not a new term for you, but ERGs might be. When Hady talks about ERGs, which is what she does, she coaches them, she's talking about employee resource groups. They're called different ways in different places, and different companies have different names for them. But basically, these are these groups like you would have your women's group within your company, or your Latino group, or your Black employees group, or your LGBTQ group, whatever it is. It's these groups that kind of come together based on an identity to support each other, learn from each other, because the reality is our experience is not all the same. And that goes for people within a certain community or identity as well. But there are some similarities, some nuances, some things that people who are from your community or who are in the same identity might understand a little bit better. So, since we talk about ERGs a lot, I thought I would give a little like asterisk of this is what we mean by it. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you again for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye. We haven't caught up in a long time. Like, life is just, ooh.
Life is lifing. And I'm realizing that as I get older, I like spending more time by myself. I used to really enjoy being around other people, and it gave me so much life. And it still does, to be honest with you. I'm definitely an extrovert. But I have this side of me that just really enjoys just being silent and quiet and, I don't know, by myself.
I think when you realize those things about you that are a little different from your regular, normal self, there's an aspect of integration of like being like, oh, yeah, this is what I like now. And I'm going to honor that. That is not sometimes not easy because it goes against what you were used to.
Yeah, and it's such a good point. But I think I realized it during COVID because I spent most of COVID by myself, and everybody was like, "Oh my God," and I'm like, I kind of liked it. So I was like, I don't know, was that weird? But I liked being alone and being at home and cooking more. I mean, I did definitely spend time Zooming with people and stuff like that. So I did connect with others, but rather enjoyed being on my own and not having to go out at night and socialize and all of that. I enjoyed it. So I said, oh, that's interesting. And then I think I've had to make some adjustments to your point because it's not how I used to be. I used to always be that there's a saying, at least in Puerto Rico. I don't know if this is a saying in El Salvador, but we might as well talk about sayings because
Yep.
that's an important part of the book and me. But la pata caliente, you ever heard of that?
In El Salvador is pata de perro. Like,
Oh, okay. Does that mean you're never at home?
yep.
That was me. Yo siempre tengo la pata caliente. It's such a common term. And it was like, oh, girl, you never home. You know, and even like when I was married, I was like, see you later. I'll talk to you tonight. Always like running around, and I rather enjoyed that. But now I am busy in other ways. I'm busy with my book. I'm busy with like newsletters, updating my website. Like as a business owner and a like soon to be published author, there's other priorities. And so I do still keep busy, but most of that busyness keeps me at home where I prefer, to be honest with you. Yeah. And then now there's like deer and bears and raccoons to contend with. That's
Wait,
like
bears?
yeah, I've not seen the bear, but allegedly there's been a bear sighting in my, like where I live in my apartment complex. And I'm like, are
Wow.
you kidding? I see the deer, and like the deer is like at this point an inconvenience. I'm not like that scared of them, but like sometimes I'm going down the hill and I'm like, there's deer there. So I'm like, I have to come back up because it's too narrow. Like it's a deer. So I don't know what to expect. So I like turn around and then I give them a minute or two and then they go run and hide and then I come back down.
This is so random. Did I ever tell you my grandmother had a pet deer? So I literally grew up.
My grandmother had a pet pig, and then apparently they killed the pig and for parts.
That was
Like
my-
that, they made a nice pernil and
Oh, yeah.
chuletas later.
I mean, yeah, but that I feel bad too.
I know that apparently, like she was really close with this pig, and Bendito, like apparently she only ate like food that my grandmother made. It was like organic, like at the
Of
end.
course. Yeah, my other grandmother, not the pet deer one, would get like turkeys for Christmas, but they were live turkeys. And my mom started trying not like to make sure that they would not kill them. And so
What would she do with them?
she would just start like she would name them, and then their was literally a turkey named Socrates who
Oh,
became a pet. He was saved.
good
And
for her. That's a good strategy. I think our porquito, like my grandmother's porquito, had a name too because apparently it would follow her around the house.
Aw.
So like they were very close, and everybody thought that porquito was gonna live. Like that, there was no way they were gonna kill it. But I don't know. But I'm not really sure what happened. Like
Oh,
desperate times.
yeah. Which actually, all of this is very interesting. We're talking about all the kind of cultural and growing up and like quirks in a way that are very ingrained to who we are. And I think, which kind of brings a little bit to your journey as an author, I would say, to a lot of the work you do too. I should say, you're the first person I have on the show twice. Yep.
Yay! I'm so excited
Yeah, you're my
and
first
honored.
repeat
I, but
guest.
you got me pretty early on. Like I
Hmm.
was a very early one, so it was
Yep.
time to come back and do a little refresh.
Yeah, and I also really wanted you to come on because, like you said just now, you are becoming a published author, which is very exciting. And we did start this journey together.
We
And so
did.
when I reached out, I wanted us to talk about your book because I think it's so cool that we were at this. So, for some background to the listeners, we were at a book event that was last April, more or less,
Was it really? That's when it was? I didn't remember. Okay.
around April 2024. It was an event that I will say for me made a big impact. I actually came out with friends from that, which is great. But I never got the go get it. I always say I will eventually write a book, but I didn't. You went and did it. Like you were like, I'm doing this and I'm doing it, and you did it. I want to hear first off, what was it that made you want to write a book in the first place?
I think there's like a couple of pieces to it. One is just related to I definitely have shared my story more. Like I'm active on LinkedIn. I'm trying to build a business. I'm an entrepreneur. So for your viewers' backstory, I lost my job. I had a cushy, not a cushy, but I had a job in corporate. Maybe it was cushy.
You had a pretty good job.
I had a job in corporate and I got laid off rather suddenly in early 2023. And then I ended up starting my own business as a consequence to that. And that was something that I had always wanted to do, but didn't do because it's a little scary to start your own business
Hmm.
and you don't even know where to start. And you got to do an LLC and whatever, make it official and all those things. And so I had never done it, but then like my hand was forced at that moment. And I feel like as I've been building out content and what are the workshops and what are the things that I want to connect with customers and prospects on, a lot of it has evolved into like self advocacy for underestimated people. Like that, when I look back, that's the thread. So it's like I've done lots of things because in the beginning, when you start a business, that's what you do because you're like, I can do all the things. And it's like, I'll try all the things. But at the end, you figure out that it's like, I need to focus. And what I've ended up focusing on is this notion of self advocacy and self promotion for underestimated people. And underestimated people is like so many people. Just about everybody is underestimated in some way, shape, or form. And so those intersectional identities that I hold, that you hold, that many of us hold, people end up putting us in a box and maybe having a little bit of bias about how they expect us to show up. And then we say, well, yes, that's your expectation, but that doesn't mean that is how I have to show up. I'm an individual. I have different lived experience. There's a lot of things that have brought me to this moment, and I want to show up a little bit differently. And I feel like I've been getting more bold and brave as my business has evolved more. As it's evolved, I'm like, yeah, I really want to do this thing with underestimated people. And in particular, I like the area of Latinas and women of color. So I'm like, that's how I identify, and that is the lived experience that I know the best. So that's who I want to cater to. So I think so. There was all of that. And then I really don't know where the book, like how I got to the point where I really wanted to write a book, except to say that I wanted my business to grow. And last year, around the same time, so I would say it was early last year, I was part of another book project, but it was like
Hmm.
multiple authors.
That's true.
And I wrote a chapter for that book. And I talked about some of those same things. So like self-advocacy, self-promotion, the being a woman of color, how it shows up, how do you like advocate for yourself in the workplace, how do you like keep receipts and all those things, and how do you build community and lean on each other and all of that. And I remember being like, maybe there's more here. I could like double click on this and really blow it, say more about this. And so that's what I ended up doing. And I would not say that the book is a follow up to that chapter directly, but I would say indirectly it probably is a follow up to that. So I would say my career and the trajectory was leading me to a place. My desire to grow my business and expand what I was doing was in the works. And then I liked when I wrote, I was like, I like this. And then I like wrote more essays and articles. And then I was like, yeah, I think I could write a book. So then we went to this conference, this book conference, and that was still very early stages. Like I was still workshopping the name. If you remember, I had like about 20 different names. I kept changing it every time someone asked me. I had a different name for the book, which PS, none of those names ended up being the name of the book.
But the concept did. I remember that
Yeah,
you
the
came up
concept
with that
stayed.
concept in that
Yeah.
first or second session while we were there, or was the
It
first day?
did. And I remember there was a thing, I think it was called Hook, Hook,
The
the hook,
chef, the hook, the something. Yeah, I
yeah,
remember
the
that.
hook, the book, and the nook. I don't remember what the thing was, but we were supposed to like pitch the book with literary agents using that recipe. And so I did. And I had some interested people. They were like, "Oh, this is interesting. Say more." I don't remember like where I ended up with them, but I ended up not going the traditional route. I don't know if we're going to cover that today,
Yeah.
but that conference was about getting mostly about like hooking up with other traditional publishers and literary agents and stuff like that. And I ended up going a different route.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that. I'm gonna have to take a detour because I just realized you said you were laid off in early 2023 and your business kind of has evolved. And I realized that like it was the same year where I quit. So it's been the 2 years also in parallel.
Yes.
And it's true, you were on my show very early. So that was in 2023. So clearly things have changed a
Yes.
lot.
Yeah.
You said you came to this point of this is what I want to focus on, right?
Yeah.
This is my sweet spot. And I'm
Yes.
curious to know like what were the other things you were toying with and how that pivoted, like how that changed and what you learned through that process.
So we talked about the cushy corporate job that I had. I was actually the head of equality for a tech company. So I thought I would just continue.
Mhm.
First, I thought I would just get another head of equality role, which proved to be really hard to get. And this was before DEI. Now it's been ripped to shreds. But like even before that, in 23, it was still hard because there was a lot of competition for the roles, and they were still very few and far
Few.
between.
Yeah.
Once I realized, I'm like, maybe this is not going to happen, especially because I was not competitive as a candidate for the amount of experience, years of experience people were looking for. So I said, okay, let me start the business and I'll just like coach or partner with DEI leaders. That's the route I'm going to go. And that I would say really made me like a generalist.
Mhm.
And if I'm fair and if I'm honest, there's so much to DEI. There could be recruiting, there could be strategy, there could be like reporting and analysis. But the part that I love the most has always been the ERGs. If I have to pick a spot, I'm gonna pick the ERGs because to me, that's always like, that's your future pipeline, the pipeline of future leaders for an organization. Those are people that they were like me because I was always an ERG leader. So I'm like, you like the company enough that you're donating your time to, or like giving of yourself to something that is really important. You're a community builder. You're someone who advocates for inclusion. You're an evangelist for equity and equality. And so those are the people that are most like me. I'm like, yeah, I think I can relate to these people and I want to support them. So that's where I ended up, was in that space. And to be honest, that's what I still do today. Is I still do a lot of support for ERGs. I'm a speaker and I started off doing speaking, but then I was like, hey, I think I could do workshops. I think I could do offsites. I think I could be an advisor. So I do sometimes still work with DEI leaders, but not so much as like a coach or like a overall strategy person, which in the beginning I thought was the route I was going to go. But I really support them as they launch or relaunch or reset or refresh their ERG programming. Because ERG programming has gone through a lot of evolutions. Even now, I feel like it's still DEI is going through a lot of changes. Besides being getting renamed, I think a lot of people are just it's showing up and looking a little bit different. And then so are the ERGs. So the ERGs are also now their spaces that are supposed to be inclusive and for everybody. And it's how do you still center the groups,
Yeah.
the primary group for which that ERG was created? And then still make it inclusive and a space where people can learn and show up and be good allies. And so there's that's like a very basic thing, but I think there's also a lot of companies that are trying to figure out, am I really going to do this ERG thing, or am I going to let someone else do it? And when I let someone else do it, there's like organizations, and I'm part of an organization called Lean Latinas, and we're like an ERG, but we're like a external ERG. And it's okay, if you're Latina and you want a community, and maybe your company doesn't have it, or maybe your company is not investing a lot in it, or maybe your company's just not actively really doing things around the ERG community building space, then you can join Lead Latinas. And PS, it's free. And there's like an annual conference, and there's circles, and you have your built-in community, and you can find your circle based on what you do professionally, or you can find it based on where you live geographically, or some other combination of things, that special skills you have, or like your favorite hobby. And it's just a whole different universe of options for people. So I feel like they compete with ERGs, and you
Hmm.
could definitely be part of both. I would encourage people to join your ERG so you can meet coworkers and understand the unwritten rules of where you work, and be able to network with people from other departments, because you're probably going to need that at some point. But I would say that then join Latinas in Tech, join Alpha, join anything, because there's so many. I'm rattling off all the Latinx ones, but obviously every like demographic has like a large set of external groups and communities that they can belong to, and most of them are free or low cost.
Yeah. You need both. I agree with that. What has been the most difficult part of building your business in these last 2 years?
So like over time it's gotten worse and worse, because I think when the affirmative action decision came down by the Supreme Court, I participated in an article that someone wrote. She's like a doctorate, and she's like a DEI professional. And she wrote an article like for Forbes, I think it was. And it's like, is DEI dead? And everybody, a couple of us like weighed in. And I said, I think people are going to do as little as they need to do, because quite frankly, I don't think there was a lot of
Yeah.
commitment in the first place. So that was like my point of view. And that was probably in 23. So that was like 2 years ago. And that, in the scheme of things, that was still good times.
Yeah.
Ever since, I think it's gotten like substantially worse. People have defunded their ERG programming. They have eliminated their DEI departments. They have let people go. People have lost their jobs, or people now they're in charge of like culture or employee engagement, or like something that is not DEI, which to me, I think is like the best possible outcome. If you just got your department name changed, that's like really nothing relative to people who lost their jobs, or ERGs who've been told to, you're on hold now. Because I had like clients that were like, we're on hold, we can't comment. Like I have a show for on LinkedIn for ERG leaders, and I've been trying to like get people to come on the show, and I can't get ERG leaders won't come, because they're like, my company won't let me talk. I can't talk about what's happening in my company right now. Like I said, some people are getting defunded, some people are on hold, some people are their mission, I guess the mission or the scope of what they're doing is a little bit different now, because they're like supposed to be all things to all employees. So it just waters down what the
Yeah.
point is of the ERG.
Yeah. Like, how are you effective if you're not for someone? You're not for it.
If you're for everybody,
Right.
then what's the point of that
Right.
space? If this space is for everyone, then who's it really helping? And there's plenty of data to support that there are groups that are at a disadvantage. And we were starting to really, I think, make some inroads there over the last, I would say, like 5 years, or 5 to 10 years. There was a lot of progress in the DEI space. And now pretty much, it's not completely stopped, but a lot of it is like getting either watered down or just not a priority anymore. So it doesn't have the same visibility or priority or even investment
Yeah.
dollars that it once had. And I feel like that is bound to affect the impact that it's making.
Yeah.
So yeah, someone who's in the space, I'm not getting gigs. I'm not
Yeah.
getting, people aren't hiring me. It's fierce. And there's a lot more people that are on their own now, because there's been a lot more layoffs. So there's a lot more people that are on their own, that started their own business. Most of them are my friends. When my friends say, I'm a Latina woman and I'm here for you, I'm like, I like that, because meaning like literally I'll like their posts because I'm like, I want to celebrate them too. I want them to get business too. There's definitely
Right.
probably business opportunity for all of us. And so I would never like not stand in the way or not support a fellow entrepreneur, but it's fierce. The competition is fierce and there's not a lot of work there. And yeah, and I know for me, like in a lot of instances, I've been underpaid. You start off small and you're trying to like build, and as you get more experience under your belt, you're trying to get what you're worth. You're trying to
Right.
earn and
I mean, it's a
charge what
business.
you,
Yeah.
and that has been very hard to do because I've had to say no, and people are like, I can't afford you. And so that's been really tough too for me.
Yeah. So putting aside the climate and everything that's going on, and it's so interesting. You said 2023, we were already talking about is DEI dead? I remember us on a
Little did we
panel
know.
talking about that, actually. You, me, Daisy, Sophia. I remember that. And what it
We didn't
seems,
know. We had no idea what was coming. Lo que venía.
wow. Wow. That just hit me.
Yeah.
Holy crap. But putting aside all of that shitty stuff, what do you think as an entrepreneur has been kind of in these 2 years the lesson that you've learned that if you could go back and be like, you didn't imagine that this would be the lesson, I guess. Like, what has been the biggest lesson?
I would say really remain nimble
Mm.
because there's a lot of changes and it's like a balance between committing to something, being like, this is the product or this is the service that I want to roll out. I want to do in my, let's say in my case, recently, not super recently, but let's say in the last few months, I created something called Power Sessions for Mujeres. And it's an offering that is not meant to be ongoing coaching. It's meant to be like, if you're stuck, let's meet and over 90 minutes we're going to get you unstuck and we're going to come up with a power plan to get
Ooh,
you
I love
unstuck.
that.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of, is this thing a thing and is this thing going to hit, and do I, been talking about it and I haven't gotten a lot of takers, does that mean that I should move on to something else, or does it mean that I should just be patient? Does it mean that I need to do more marketing around it? Do I really feel, obviously a lot of thought goes behind creating the thing in the first place. I really was like, I've been talking to people and I think this is a good solution that I don't see out there right now, that people, especially if you can't afford long-term coaching, then this is like something that could like be a short-term solution until you could get into a long-term coaching relationship. And so I do feel like sometimes things are ahead of their time, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, I'm still sticking by it. And I'm like, I've had some clients and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. From my perspective, it's been so much fun trying to solve for something. And it's something that I'm good at. So I'm like, I'm going to stick with this. But there have been some other things that I've had to be like, I think I need to move on because I'm not getting any takers and I can circle back on this, but not right now. So sometimes it's like, get rid of it. Sometimes it's not right now. Sometimes this is too soon. And sometimes it's just keep marketing this thing and it's gonna hit. And you don't know. It's not like there's nothing that tells you like this one falls into this category and this other one falls into the other category. A lot of it is like gut and just an understanding of the community. And I feel like when it comes to Latinas and women of color, that's the community. And yeah, I feel like I know the needs of that community. So I'm like, I think I have something here and I'm going to stick with it. And I'm like, maybe once the book comes out, I think that there'll be like a greater demand for this and I'm going to stick with it. So there's some that I double down on and there's some that I've had to walk away from and there's some that I put on ice and then some that I've abandoned altogether. So it's stay nimble and know your market and your customers, your clients, and just always be cultivating those relationships that could lead to something in the future. I feel like that having patience as I've built relationships and trust and like a reputation, and some people are not going to be like, oh, great, we had a conversation and I want to hire you now.
Right.
Like it takes time. And sometimes I've had ERGs that said no and they'll come back to me, that not for that thing, but maybe 6 months later they're like, okay, we really loved you even last time, but like now we have more money so we can do it. And so it's like not taking it personally, building those relationships, understanding that a no sometimes it's just not right now, and then just staying very nimble. So I know I gave you lots of answers, but
No, but a lot of it is finding product market fit, which is the big thing you hear about when you're talking about tech startups too. but it applies to everything.
Yeah.
Is their product market fit? Is the thing you're offering at the right time to the right people? And is this a problem that people will actually want to pay for versus this is a problem they have, but they don't care enough, or a problem they
Yeah.
have that they don't even know they have?
Yes, that's where I think, like, if I think about my power sessions, I'm like, I think that's one they don't know they have that need yet. And I feel like there's still an opportunity there for that one. So I'm like very excited about it. And it's a new product. Part of it is that it's new, and part of it is that I feel like you said, it's almost like Apple with the iPhone. It's like, you really need this.
Right.
You don't know it yet, but you really need this.
Right. Okay, so I want to talk about the book. You came up with that idea during that session. First off, tell us about the book and then what led you to that idea specifically.
Yeah, so the book is called Calladita No More, My Latina Journey and the Lessons That Shaped Me. And so, as I think I've said a couple times already, being Latina is the experience that I'm most familiar with. So I wanted to lead into that because I felt as a first time like solo book person, I really wanted to be an authority. And I'm like, you can't say I'm not an authority in the lived experience of a Latina and a woman of color. Like, I'm definitely an authority on this. So like that part I think was important to me. I wanted to really demonstrate like a deep understanding of what I was writing about. Also, with over 30 years of experience in corporate and nonprofit, I was like, I got stories, y'all. I got lots of stories. And I had tea for days. But I didn't drop names or anything like that. But I tell stories, and some people might recognize themselves, and that's okay. Like, it's all true. That's like a very important like asset that I had, these experiences. And I'm like, I got to put them out there, especially because the context of what I was looking to do was really serve as a resource for future generations, younger people coming up. Yeah, I'm in the stage of my life now where I really want to give back. And so I'm like, okay, how do I give back? People can learn from my lessons instead of having to go through it themselves. Más sabe el diablo por viejo que por diablo. So it's like, and so refranes are a big part of it. And you know that I use refranes freely all the time. Even if you're not Latino, you're going to get refranes from me, and I do translate them. But I'm a refran person, and refranes are like, they're sayings. And it's like a little bit of wisdom that you have. And in Spanish, in the Latino culture, boy, we have a saying for everything, it
Mhm.
feels like.
Oh,
Multiple
yeah.
sayings for everything. They're cool because even it doesn't matter what country we're from. Like usually we share, they're pretty common. There might be some that are like Puerto Rican or El Salvadorian or whatever, but by and large, the majority of them, we share them across countries and across cultures. So it's like really fun because we'll all know what we're talking about. And so basically have the book, the way it breaks down is like there's a different lesson that I learned. And then I share like stories related to that lesson. And every chapter starts with a refrain. And sometimes I even use another refrain in the chapters. I think I have 24, 25 refranes in the whole book. And yeah, so it's like, it's fun. I think also it's such a cool way to go back to the culture. Like my cultural identity is so important to me, and I wanted a way to bring in that culture in a very like special way into the book. The refrains were a very powerful way to do that because I feel like no matter who you are, if you're Latino, if you didn't hear it from your mother, you probably heard it from your grandmother or your tia. Everybody's got a saying in their life, or just about everybody. So it's a really great way to connect all of us.
I remember when you pitched the idea of refranes, and it's funny because even in this conversation at the beginning, we talked about one, right? Like you said pata de fuego, or what was it?
Caliente.
Caliente. And for us,
Pata
it was
caliente.
like pata de chucho, and in Mexico, it's pata de perro. It's the same exact concept, just with one word
For
change.
everybody's benefit, pata is like a leg. So
Oh,
it's like
yes.
your leg is like your leg's running out the door at all times. So pata caliente is like a hot leg. Your leg is so hot that you got to run around. So
Yeah.
that's
And in El
the
Salvador,
image.
pata and pata de perro in Mexico, which are the same thing, it's like dog leg, but because it's like you're just running around like a dog.
Yeah.
So weird, but that's the way it is.
Oh yeah, and that's the best part. Oh wait, we got to say, I have to say this because you just made the case and point. The translations are awful for these refranes, so I had to say the refran literally translates to this, but that makes no sense. So this is what it really is saying because the refranes are like what, and that I had experience with that because lots of times when I use refranes with non-Spanish speakers, I'm like, it says I have a hot leg, and they're like, really? And what is, and what? So what does that mean? And then it's oh, okay. What it really means is this. And so I have both translations in the book,
Yeah,
the
that's
literal and the more figurative one.
and the title of your book is based on a refrán.
Yes, that's a good point, and I meant to say that. So, a very popular refrán that a lot of Latinas don't like is "Calladita te ves más bonita," which is "you're prettier when you're quiet." And my thing was a nod to that to say, no, I'm not prettier when I'm quiet. I'm actually uglier when I'm quiet, and I'm prettier when I advocate for myself. So, Calladita No More. Anybody who is familiar with that refran, and that's almost everybody, they're going to know what I'm talking about. So, they should be prepared for refranes because like you said, it's in the title.
I remember, even with the title of the book, you getting comments from naysayers. I remember there was like some stuff around the title in Spanish versus non-Spanish.
Yes.
Or so I'm curious, and I know you, so I kind of know the answer to this. Some of the things that you might have gotten from naysayers, but you don't have to share if you don't want to. But mostly, how did you deal with that? And how did you make sure you were being true to yourself and what you wanted to put out there?
Yeah, I think that once I took the step forward, because I love the name, once I got my name, I was all in and I was like, this is for our community. I'm just going to say what needs to be said. This is the book. That's the title. This is the content. Go. I honestly, Marisela, it wasn't until afterwards that people were like, oh, like I could just tell, especially non-Spanish speakers were like, oh, that's nice. And clearly, like, they didn't think the book was for them. So they're like, I'm never reading that book. They didn't say that, but that's the look and the expression that's the vibe I got received from them was like, oh. And I was like,
Hmm.
Calladita, what does that mean? So I was like, okay. So I felt like I needed to do a little run some, what is it, like, not intervention, but say, like, I was bringing this up in like a coaching group call. And I was like, I feel like I'm starting to get a feeling like people don't think this book is something that they're going to read. And I'm sad about it. Obviously, I wrote it for Latinas and women of color, but I do feel like other people could benefit from it because you're going to learn a lot about what our experience is like. And if you care about us and you work with us, or you're married to us, or you're raised children with us, or if you're in proximity to us, you should read the book too. So I ended up like writing a Substack about it that I've shared. And I think I just out loud speak it more, which is this book is for Latinas and women of color and the people who love us. And I hope that includes you. I hope that every Latina has a non Latinx person who loves them, or I hope every non Latinx person has a Latina in their life that is important to them, that they love or care about deeply, and that they would still want to read this book. I've had some Latino men message me and say, oh, your book sounds cool. I'm going to buy it for my wife. I'm going to buy it for my daughter. And I'm like, I appreciate you. I hope you read it too. Because I don't think that it's not como que a lot of the messages are universal. And
Hmm.
also, I want you to know what it feels like to be in our body and
Yeah.
what our experience is like, because it's different. And you might not be hearing this, you might not be aware of this. And I just came back from a Lean in Latinas conference, and there were a couple of like male allies there, and I had one guy come up to me and he was like, I had no idea. I'm like, I don't know how you had no idea, but okay, let's go with it. You're like a grown man and you had no idea that this was our experience. Okay, uh, valid. Let's just say, okay, what are you going to do about it? And how are you going to help spread the word? Because I actually don't think a lot of people realize this is our experience. And some of it, I think, is maybe you haven't been listening to us, or some of it is maybe us not advocating for ourselves enough, so other people around us don't understand or don't know or appreciate like what we have to go through, or maybe a combination of both. But there's definitely a gap here, and there's an opportunity to meet the moment, for the book to fill that gap and meet the moment of really educating and informing members of our own community, as well as people that maybe don't identify as Latinx but still might be curious about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember us talking about that, like specifically the title stuff, but I also remember even from the inception of your idea, hearing people not necessarily
Poo poo
be,
it.
yeah, and it's like I and interestingly enough, it was like you said, people who wouldn't un necessarily identify or understand it. But I think there's so much value in the fact that You stood to what you believed in and were true to, and
Yes.
this is what I want to create, and went ahead and
Yes.
did it.
It's a little scary because
Right.
it's not on the surface, it does not appear to be a book for everyone. And why would you write a book that you don't want everyone to read? You want to maximize like the reading potential. I would argue and debate, and I would stick with this point that it's like, but you should care. Even if it doesn't directly impact you, you should still care. And this is still interesting. At a minimum, it's still interesting, but at a maximum, you could understand our experience so much more that you could show up better for us. And wouldn't that be cool?
It's the same as we were talking about ERGs at the beginning, right? If you're just watering down a message
Yeah.
to make it for everyone,
Yeah. To
then
make
where's
it
the power in that?
palatable, then what's the point? 1,000%. And I have the courage to do it, but there's a part of me that's also like nervous about it because it's have I alienated people? Do people feel excluded? But I would also argue like, how many times have you and I had to read a book and be like, this doesn't feel like
Yep.
anything related to my experience. I'm going to have to adjust it for my
Mhm.
experience. Or I'm going to have to be like, wow, like this is about somebody who lives on the other side of the world. And that is a foreign experience to me. But man, that it's so cool to read this firsthand and live through their words, like understand what it would feel like to be in those person's shoes. My bet is that I'm gambling on that people are curious and that maybe once people hear, oh, like it was amazing and like I learned so much from it, and it's like the messages are powerful and they're quite
Yeah.
universal, that more people will want to read it.
Yeah.
But I'm entering the very scary time of the process, let me tell you.
I am the type of person that believes, again, even going back to the product market fit situation, is if you try to build something for everyone, you're building it from no one. So
Yeah.
it's the same with books, it's the same with everything. Like you have to know who you're talking to and why you're talking to them.
Yes.
And yes, other people will benefit. And yes, other people can definitely should try to understand it.
Yeah.
But
I rem- I don't know if you know the book When I Was Puerto Rican by Esmeralda Santiago. So it's
you've
not
mentioned it. I haven't read it. It's on my Goodreads.
yeah, it's not like a recent book. It's a very
Yep.
old book. But that was one of the first times she was talking about being in Puerto Rico, eating ganepas on the beach. And I was like, oh my God, I feel so seen. Like, I don't know what everyone else's experience was like reading that book. I know I loved it. That was like one of my favorite books ever. And I was like, and this is not like the first time that somebody writes a book for a specific community.
It,
Like,
it,
they're written all the time. And I want my book to be like that. When people read it, that they're like, oh, this girl's, oh shit, like what? Sheila grew up in Brooklyn and she did this and she went to CCD class and she started her career at a consulting company, but didn't have anybody else that was like her. And she was the only Latina in those spaces. And I think it is going to be relatable to a
yes.
lot of people for sure.
And that's the power in it. Why did you choose to go the self-publish route?
So actually, the route that I went is called hybrid
Well, hybrid.
publishing.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a little different than self, and it's definitely not traditional. And so traditional publishing usually has a longer sort of timeline. It's like more like 2.5 years. And I knew time-wise, that was one of the big things that contributed to my decision was like I wanted to get it out there sooner rather than later. Also, I wasn't getting enough bites, and it looked like I was gonna have to do like a whole kind of write the book. There's a thing for traditional publishing. It's I forget what it's called.
The
It's like
proposal.
yeah, the proposal. And you're basically like writing the book, but not writing the whole book. You're doing a lot of research. You're like writing several chapters. You're doing all this work, and there's no one paying you anything to do it, or you don't even know if anything's gonna happen. And I was like, if I'm writing the book, I'm just gonna write the book. I'm just gonna go to the finish. I don't see where I'm gonna start and then just stop and do this thing. For me, I felt like I just wanted to go all in. So I think a lot of it was timing. A lot of it was like just not having enough literary agents and connections in my life that like felt like anything was gonna happen anytime soon. And then another Latina wrote a book. Her name is Gigi Gonzalez. She wrote a book called Cultura and Cash that came out last year, early last year. And she's like your average Latina. She didn't grow up wealthy. She didn't have a silver spoon in her mouth. She just was like a common person. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but she was like your average person. And she wrote this like amazing book. And I was like, that's it. I'm like, I'm gonna be like Gigi and I'm just gonna write this amazing book and I'm gonna get it out there. She hybrid published it and she talked about the reasons why. And I get to keep most of my royalties. I get to control the content. I get to control how it's marketed. I get to control like all the art. And you basically keep all that intellectual capital and all the related decisions. You're managing all of it. And I was like, yeah, I think that sounds more like me. And so it's more expensive because you have to make the investment, and it ain't cheap. It is not cheap. That's one reality about hybrid publishing and probably self-publishing too. But I partner with a B Corp, and they're a queer-owned, women-owned B Corp that is all about amplifying the voices of underestimated, underrepresented people. So I'm very happy with the publisher I landed with. I would pick them again, hands down. And because I didn't go the traditional publishing route, I've picked my own editors, which were all Latinas. I picked my illustrator, also Latina. So I got to really build the book I wanted with the people I wanted and who share my lived experience. And I was getting good feedback all the way through. So even my editor was like, oh my God, I feel so inspired by your book. And I'm like, yay, this is great. So there was a lot of power in going my own path, like creating my own path. And I'm happy with that decision. But it was really inspired by, like I said, this author, Gigi Gonzalez, also Latina, younger than me, but like great at her craft, a big influencer in the TikTok space. And she went for it. And she just really created a path that felt like attainable. And I said, if I was like, yep, she did it. And like she was sharing how she did it. And I was like, I'm gonna do it too then. I think I'm gonna be able to do this on my own. And I'm very grateful for her for opening that path and like showing that it's possible. And I'm also happy with my choice to build it in the way that I wanted to build it and not how it needed to be built. And I talked to some other hybrid publishers, by the way, before picking who I picked, which is Publish Your Purpose is my hybrid publisher. I talked to some other ones that were bigger names, and they couldn't guarantee me that I would have a Latina editor, which I felt was important because my book had elements of
Yeah.
Spanish, and I really want, and some of it was like Spanglish, and I just wanted someone who understood that and for whom it was relatable and who could improve anything that I wrote. And just the fact that they couldn't guarantee me that I could have a Latina editor really, it made it easier for me to decide the path that I picked.
The hybrid publishing model is very interesting, I think, because it's you still have the backing of an actual like it's not just you out doing your self-publishing.
Correct.
It's an interesting hybrid. It's
Yeah, it
interesting middle
really is.
ground.
And it's been amazing because I get support from my publisher. We have like author group meetings and marketing calls and things that we do together and support each other, like authors supporting authors. And then I ended up working with the book coach. And actually, it was Gigi's book coach. So I ended up working with that book coach also. Her name is Stacey Ennis. And I have a whole like writer author community there too. And I have two author communities now with my publisher and with my book coach. And there's a lot of best-selling authors in that group, in those groups. There's other Latinos, there's queer people. There's just other underestimated voices in those spaces. And I'm like, I am where I belong. I don't
Sounds like
regret anything.
it takes a village, like the editor, the publisher, the book coach, the like
The
yeah.
illustrator, the PR. I have a PR coach, also Latina. I have a street team coordinator, also Latina. I have a media manager, also Latina.
Wow.
I'm so proud of that. I'm like, I
Yeah.
didn't have to do that. There's other, I could have just gone like the traditional route, not just traditional publishing, but traditional route, meaning like there's a lot of people out there who claim to be like the best at this, and they're not Latinx. And I wanted my community to really be present in every step of the process.
I think that's great, especially with the topic of the book goes back to who you are creating this for, right? If you're bringing these voices and these people and supporting them, but also because that's who will understand it. That's who also will
Yes.
know what you're coming from and what you're trying to communicate.
Yes.
But on the other hand, I will say, as you're naming all of this people, I'm like, that also sounds like a really big investment.
It is a big investment. It is an army of people. You gotta be super organized. I'm a very organized person, so I'm fine. But I would imagine that for some people, this is quite challenging.
I don't know if I could do it because my organizational skills are not there.
You need to be organized. You need to be decisive because there's so many decisions every day. It's like, where are we going to do this? Who do we want to do that? Do we want to send this to this? I got my PR person. I got the street team person. I got the publisher. I got like about 20,000 people asking me questions, making decisions. I'm a decisive person, so
Yeah.
I am grateful for that. Like that is a skill that ended up coming in handy in this process. And I'm also extremely organized. So I guess I turn things around right away. I also have an audiobook, and that was like
Yeah, I know.
aparte. That was aparte. So that's like another thing that I had to do. So obviously I'm reading the book that I wrote, but it's like a whole other project. So now I had to like partner with a production company to do that. Yeah, girl, it is not. And then I'm like trying to get people contact bookstores, contact influencers. I had get endorsements, which by the way, my endorsements are 9 out of 11 endorsements were other Latinas.
Love
And
that.
then when I did my hard cover, I had to include, I think it was 6 endorsements, but I don't remember exactly. I think that's the right number, 5 or 6, and they're all Latina. I'm like, I think this might be the first book that's all Latina
I love
endorsed,
it.
but it's for us, so that's appropriate, I think. To your
Yeah,
point,
again, goes back to knowing who you're talking to. What was the hardest part of writing the book? But I think that question is so like trite and whatever. So I actually want to know this because you said every chapter is like a refran, which to me really feels because this is your story, each chapter is going to be very personal and very, I don't know, at least for me, when I write, I know a lot of like things like get moved. So which was the hardest to write?
I would say two. One is I wrote about my family, so I start off with family because I feel like family shapes a lot about our journey, shapes our journey very early on, and that's where we pick up like maybe some limiting beliefs. And it's
Hmm.
also
Yeah.
where we're encouraged and we build our confidence. Also, if you're lucky enough to have a family that helps you in building confidence. I'm the youngest, and so I had 3 older sisters being like, "You're great." So that helped me a lot. But I would say the family one was very personal because I talk about my mother, my father, and my sister, all who have passed, and what I learned from them. And it's extremely personal. I cover a very hard topic around police brutality and a conversation that I had with my sister when I was a little girl. And I also talk about my father owning a business and how he was a business for the community and how much that inspired me looking back. Obviously, not in the moment, but looking back. And I talk about my mom all the time. I call her a badass. And I'm like, Mommy inspired me to be a bold and brave woman, but it wasn't by necessarily how she lived her life. It was what she told me, how I needed to live my life. And I feel I had to not look at what she was doing, but pay attention to what she was saying. And I have 3 sisters, so there were four. She raised 4 daughters, and she was badass in her own right. And I think she helped us to be badass, and also, in the case of my sisters, to raise some badass children as well. I'm really proud of like my family and my nieces and nephews and everybody. And I would say mommy played a big role in that. And I would say the other hard one was hard chapter to write was the last one because I really wanted people to be motivated and inspired. And it's like, how do I really what is it that I'm going to say that's what can I leave with you with the
Hmm.
reader, and what can I how can I inspire you to really take the steps necessary to begin this journey and to write your own story and to advocate for yourself and to live the life you want. And so the words sometimes are not enough, but I try my best. I'm happy with the way it ended. And I have to tell you, that's like a pet peeve of mine. I could like a book, and if it has a crappy ending, I'm like 4 stars because I didn't like that ending. So I was like, I better come correct because I know that I'm very picky about endings to books. Usually it's like novels, but I'm very picky about how books end. I needed to have a powerful ending.
Before my last question, anything we haven't covered or anything you want to share with the audience that maybe I haven't asked or haven't touched on?
Yeah, I would just say that even if you buy the book, buy the audiobook because I narrated myself. I'm very proud of how it came out. Sounds very professional. Like I recorded it from my home, but it was with a professional production person. So it's really sounds like a book, it's just like every other book, which is very cool to hear, and it's like my voice. And I wrote like the book the way I talk. So it was extremely easy for me to narrate this book because it's basically I'm just reading it and I read it the way I wrote it. And I don't know, I just feel like it's really fun. And if you enjoy the book, I think you'll enjoy the audiobook even more because it like the points that I make are really driven home, and then you could hear how I meant it and how I said it. And I curse a lot, not too much, but enough, but only for dramatic effect. It's more like adjectives. I'm not cursing at anyone. It's just like an adjective, but it's fun, and so I feel like when you hear me say it, you're gonna feel it more.
Yeah. Does it come out at the same time?
Yeah. Yep.
Maybe I'll do that and I'll listen to you while I run.
Oh my goodness. I think you'll enjoy it. Yeah.
I already bought the book, but maybe I'll do the
Yes.
audiobook too. Okay, my last question. What's one book everyone should read?
Wow, that's a hard question
Mm.
because I've read so many books. I'm trying to think. I have a book that I'm gonna recommend, especially if you're a Latina or woman of color. One of the books that really inspired me was Minda Hart's book, The Memo. And you might have heard me talk about this book before. It's the book I most often talk about when people ask me this question because it was probably one of the first times. So whereas Esmeralda Santiago's book, when I was Puerto Rican, just made me feel seen as a Puerto Rican person, The Memo was the book that helped me to be seen as a professional. And that one was probably even more validating because for a long time I walked around thinking it was me. And I'm like, why do these things keep happening to me? Am I not getting promoted? Why do I feel like they ignore me when I say stuff? Why am I not invited to the meeting? Different things would happen to me. And I was like, I took it very personal and felt like I was like messing up. And then when she said her experience, I was like, oh. So it was very validating. So that one book by Esmeralda Santiago helped me to feel seen. I think Minda Hart's book helped me to feel validated. And she writes another book called Right Within, which is like an amazing book. Some might call it a sequel to the first book. And it was so healing. It was so healing. It was so healing. And I guess I'll leave it there.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy we did this.
Me too.
So thank you for being here.
You're one of my favorite interviewers, Marisela. You know that
Oh,
already. I feel like I've given you that feedback before, but
thank you.
I can't walk in without any notes into any meeting room, but I always trust that I can come into yours. So thank you for creating
That-
a safe space and a fun space.
That means so much. So thank you. That's it for today. Thanks for listening. If you liked this episode, hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if it made you think, feel something, or yell same out loud, leave a quick rating or review. It really helps. If you didn't like it, just pretend this never happened. You can also subscribe on Substack for updates and extras. I'd love to hear from you. Come say hi on Instagram at quitmyjobpod or email me at quitmyjobpod@gmail.com. See you next time.